My mom and dad separated when I was 9 and legally divorced when I was 15. My mother is a manipulative and toxic person, so it took my dad a long time to recover from that type of relationship. I love my dad, but we have never been close. However, as my brother and I have gotten older, we've been talking a lot more and forming a real bond. Cut to 10 years after the divorce. My dad met a really amazing woman, and he calls me to ask if I'm okay with him getting married. Without hesitation, I say yes. They had been dating for a couple of years, and her 2 daughters quickly felt like family. At that time, I was in grad school and broke, but I told him I would make it, and even with a new dress to match the theme. So months ahead of time, I buy a dress and a ticket from Hawaii, where I was going to school, to North Carolina to arrive the day before the wedding. My brother also bought a ticket, as he lives with our mom out of state. But our stepsisters live within 10 minutes of my dad, so all the kids were going to be there. The wedding was small, but it was on a gorgeous beach, and my brother and I were teary-eyed the whole time. We hadn't gotten a lot of alone time with our dad before the ceremony because we were all setting decorations, but we figured the reception would be the best place to talk with him and our new stepmom because there were only about 12 people. Well, we get inside for the reception. There are 2 beautiful round tables with 6 chairs each. My brother and I look for our names next to our dad, but they weren't there or anywhere on the table. I checked the wedding party table again, just to be sure, but it was only our stepsisters and some of our stepmom's friends. We were sitting at the other table with distant family. I got so hurt, and I could see in my brother's face that he was also hurt. Then I was so upset that I had to stop myself from crying at the table, or leaving, or asking him why right then. It felt like we were silently being categorized as distant family, while we watched our dad join a new family that was happy and whole. I felt like a piece of broken marriage he didn't want to be reminded of that day. Am I the a-hole? Edit. My feelings of being pushed away were exacerbated by my dad telling me after the reception that I might not actually be his kid. My mom told him she cheated early in the relationship. It might be a vicious lie mom told to hurt him before his new marriage, but I could see in my dad's face that he wasn't sure. Edit 2. There was and is no beef between me and my stepmom or stepsisters. My mom has been blocked by my stepmom for being toxic, but as far as I know, she didn't hold that against me or my brother. Not the a-hole. Regardless of whoever organized the seating, they should have considered what it meant separating the kids from past marriages the way they did. There's nothing wrong with wanting to walk out, but I'm glad you didn't. It seems these feelings would be better dealt with talking to your dad or a therapist. Would the result of a paternity test change how you feel? Just something to consider. Not the a-hole. Your mom, a known toxically manipulative, hateful person, drops this bombshell on your dad to ruin his wedding, and he lets it ruin his wedding. He really should have known better and not allowed her to manipulate him into hurting his kids. I disagree about needing a DNA test. DNA doesn't make a dad. He's raised you from birth. He's your dad. Unless he has an uncontrollable primal urge to fight or mate with anyone without his very own super special DNA, this should not even be an issue. Your dad has really dropped the ball here. He's done the exact opposite of what he should have with regard to your mom's confession. Not the a-hole. Beyond the seating, where you already felt like less than because you and your brother were not seated with the family. Your dad tells you after the reception that your mom cheated and you might not be his. What a major a-hole. What possible reason could he have to pick that moment to tell you that? My, 23 female, dad had an affair which produced my half-sister Beth, 21 female. My parents split up. Dad and his affair partner, Eve, never got together and had many very messy court battles over the years. Beth never met my grandparents. They have a very old-school attitude to affairs. You don't have them, but if you do, you never talk about them. My dad died when I was 19. I inherited his estate. Eve, on Beth's behalf, tried to contest the will but lost, and that was the last I heard of them, until a few months ago. Beth got in contact with my grandmother, and I don't know what was said, but my grandmother asked if it would be okay for them to get to know her, and I said okay. I was a bit uncomfortable because I don't really have the most positive memories of Beth from when we were kids, but I figured it was my grandparents' choice. I was traveling a lot at the back end of last year, so I never saw Beth, but I know she saw my grandparents a few times and met my aunts. Recently, my grandparents were coming to the area Beth and I both live in, and my grandmother asked if it would be okay having Beth over at my apartment for dinner with them. Again, I felt weird about it, but said yes. The dinner comes around, and it's me, my boyfriend, my grandparents, and Beth held at my apartment. The dinner was quite awkward, but no more than you'd expect given the situation. It was around dessert when Beth asked if I owned my apartment. I said yes, and she asked if I'd bought it with the money from the money my grandparents gave me. Now, my grandparents have thus far given all their children and grandchildren money when they turned 21. It's money they set aside when we were born. I don't know how Beth knew about this. I told her no, I didn't. My boyfriend actually bought it and gifted it to me. I hoped this would move the conversation along, but Beth kept fixating on the trust fund thing. Eventually, she said that since she's part of the family now, she hoped my grandparents would give her the same money they gave me. It all got a bit ugly after that. My grandfather was livid. Beth called me cruel for not taking her side and said she wasn't trying to trick anyone. She wanted the same relationship with my grandparents that I had with them, and if that included money, she should have that too. I told her to get her entitled gold-digging butt out of my house. This has become family news. One aunt thinks I'm an a-hole for saying that to Beth and not giving her the benefit of the doubt. The other aunt thinks that timing is too convenient. My boyfriend thinks I should have refused to involve myself in this from the beginning. My grandparents refused to talk about the issue, but my grandfather privately told me that while he thinks we are right about Beth's intentions, my grandmother thinks we went too far with what we said. So, am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. Why is she less deserving of family support than you are? Why do you feel entitled to judge her? If you are 23 and have been given an apartment, on top of trust fund money, you are doing very well. Are you worried this means there will be less for you later on? How utterly selfish. Everyone sucks here. You're an a-hole for sticking your nose in. Your boyfriend was right that you should have not gotten involved because it is none of your business. Beth is an a-hole for looking for money. She isn't entitled to her grandparents' money, but I can't understand her attitude, and to be frank with you, that's all your grandparents deserve. They are the true a-holes here. They had a grandchild they ignored and have treated as dirt because of the actions of their son. It's very obvious that they didn't disown him. An innocent child who no doubt would have adored her grandparents and who has been punished by her miserable father's family for the crime of being born. Your father was also a major a-hole for not ensuring his minor daughter was provided for in his will. It doesn't surprise me that Beth has turned out hard, selfish, and cynical. It sounds like she's turned out exactly like her father's family. You're the a-hole. Does she want what the family has as a whole? Yes. She has been ostracized her whole life for something your father and her mother did. She was penalized and denied a relationship with him, you, and the grandparents. She will never get those birthdays, school plays, and I love yous. Is asking about the money crass? Yes. But is it part of the acceptance as real family? Also yes. It's symbolic. I also think it's disgusting that you inherited the whole estate. Beth was 17 when he died, and once again, your jerk father disowned his child. Another rejection. He could and should have put something equitable in trust for her. I would put forth that you're a gold digger too, because you took it all with no concern or care for fairness. I, 25 female, got married back in January of last year. My sister, 28 female, was my maid of honor, as well as the person I walked down the aisle with, because I thought it was nice to have my best friend, favorite person other than my husband by my side. My stepdad knew about it and was fine with everything, until my sister's speech came. She talked about how my husband and I were perfect for each other, etc., and how she thought it was really cool to make him her brother in a kind of official way. She then talked about our dad, how he would have been so happy, how he would have loved to be there, how we missed him, and how I remind her every day of him, and how proud he would be. It got emotional. Our dad died when I was 6 and she was 9, and we definitely felt his loss growing up. Our stepdad and mom married 3 years after our dad died. He's a good guy, makes our mom happy, treated us good, but he definitely feels more for us than we do for him. He considers us his girls, and I did kind of guess he might feel a little weird about the speech, so I told him beforehand that my sister was going to bring up our dad during her speech. Apparently, he did not expect, to quote him, a eulogy, which is what he considered that, and said it couldn't be more clear from her speech that he was meaningless to us, and our dad was all we cared about. He said everyone must have figured that out. He did not bring this up with me until a month ago. He was different, but I figured he might have had some other stuff going on. But he brought it up to me and said I should have never let a speech like that go ahead, that I had to know it would be a slap in the face and make him uncomfortable. He told me the warning I gave him was not good enough, and I need to think about everything. And I'm here like, yeah, I knew he would feel a certain way, but that's why I did warn him. To me, it seems like he's overreacting, but then in the back of my head, I can kind of see why he felt uneasy. I just don't think it should be on us to put his comfort above our remembering our dad or talking about him. But I want to hear what you guys think. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It would have been nice for your sister to mention your stepdad in the speech, but she also didn't mention your mom. It was just an acknowledgement of your dad on how you two miss him on this day. Additionally, your stepdad is mad at the wrong person. Your sister is the one that didn't mention him. You mentioned him in your speech. Your stepdad and your sister need to have a conversation about this and what this means for their relationship. Your stepdad shouldn't be mad at you for something that your sister said. Not the a-hole. I don't understand how you're the bad one here. Your sister made the speech, and sure, he raised you for a certain amount of years, but like it's your dad. He's not here to see your big day. You mentioned him in your speech, and that's okay. People need to realize your dad's more special here. Not the a-hole. Your stepdad is here. Your dad is gone. I will never understand step-parents that try to make kids feel guilty for missing their deceased parents. Your sister, based on comments, just mentioned your dad and how he is missed. It's not like she thanked everyone under the sun except him. Your stepdad needs to kind of get over himself. You and your sister are allowed to miss your dad. You're allowed to not think of your stepdad as your dad. His feelings are not yours to manage. The gist is this. I lost my mom to a long-term health issue when I was 10. The cost of treatment drained my parents' finances, and it was just Dad and me after Mom died. No extended family. Dad started dating when I was 12, and he met Jane. After a few months, he told me her son had a form of brain cancer and was very sick, and that they were getting married and he would be helping to take care of her son. We went from 2 in a tiny 2-bedroom house to 4 in a tiny 2-bedroom house, and me sharing with a terminally ill toddler I didn't know. We had to make so many changes. No more takeout, which was a once-a-month treat before that. I had to stop my only extracurricular activity. No friends over because noise bothered him. No space that was just mine. No extra money for celebrating birthdays and Christmas. When I was 15, Dad and I got into a huge argument because I was never home and was always saying no to helping Jane take care of her son. When I told him how much I hated the situation, he looked me in the eye and told me to grow up. He also told me that I was old enough to understand that life wasn't always easy or fun, and that a rougher life can build character. He told me that we grew our family, which was a good thing, and one of the consequences of that sometimes is having less, but it was worth it for the extra love. I told him that was BS. He told me I was not his whole life, and he was not going to stop doing what he wanted to do because of me. Then he told me to never ever say anything negative around his stepson, because he was a kid and didn't need to know I resented him for being sick. After that talk, I was even more distant and left when I was 17, right after graduation, and couch surfed until I went to college. I graduated high school at 17 and turned 18 that October. I didn't stay in touch. When I was 19, I heard that Dad's stepson had died. In college, I met my wife, and we got married this past June. Then in November, my dad showed up and told me he wanted to talk. I shut the door in his face. He kept showing up where I was to talk. After getting annoyed with him, I agreed to meet him for a coffee. He told me how he'd ended up being divorced from Jane and how his stepson had died, and he looked disappointed when he learned I knew. He told me how he'd been struggling a lot and how he was hoping I could help him out. I laughed in his face and told him he had some nerve. He mentioned how he'd spent a lot of money on finding me and wanted us to repair things, but he also needed my help. I told him no way. He became angry and told me he was my dad and was always there for me, and I owed him. I told him I owed him nothing and threw most of his words back in his face, including that he needed to grow up and that he was not my whole life and would not stop me doing what I want. It became a bit of a scene. He told me at my age I should have grown more compassion. Am I the a-hole? You are most definitely not the a-hole. Your father prioritized his new wife and stepson over you and expected you to be fine with giving up your life to accommodate them. You did well for yourself in creating a new healthy life for yourself. Your father only reached out to you after his divorce and had nobody left, and now wants you to resume the role he tried to force on you years earlier. Only this time, he wants you to take care of him instead of his stepson. You handled this perfectly. Not the a-hole. He was already struggling financially due to your mother's health issue. Decided to still date a woman and help take care of her son, despite knowing perfectly well that he didn't have the money to do that, and take care of you at the same time. He basically didn't give a damn about you for years, and now that the child is dead and the mother finished sucking him dry, he suddenly remembered he had a son and came begging for money. If I were you, I would have closed the door on his face repeatedly until he understood the message. Not the a-hole. You are absolutely right that you owe him nothing. He doesn't like how his own medicine tastes. I am 30, female, and an oops baby to my parents who are 70. I wasn't the kind of baby where it was unexpected, but a pleasant surprise that made older parents happy. It was the surprise they didn't want, and they just kept me, but it's clear my whole life I'm not wanted. My older sister Kara is my full sister, and she is 50. It's pretty damn clear my parents were done being parents in their late 30s and planned on enjoying life once my sister was around 18 or 20. I was basically cared for by my sister. My parents interacted with me so little that they actually forgot I existed sometimes. My sister stayed home while studying to basically be my mom, and when she got her own place, she took me with her. My parents didn't notice I was gone for 3 months. Even then, it was like they didn't care. Throughout the years, I've heard them talk about only having one daughter and laughing when they've been corrected about having 2, citing, "Oh, guess we forgot about that one." I barely interacted with them. They've forgotten my birthday a lot, forgot the date of my graduation, and have called me the wrong name before. My sister hates what my parents have done, and she too has minimal contact with them, but it still hurts that they care for her more. My sister has tried her best, and I don't blame her for anything. Anyway, I'm getting married next month to my long-term boyfriend, Alan. I am so excited, and naturally, I asked my sister to walk me down the aisle, as she is practically my mom. I sent our invitations months ago, including to my parents, just to have them there, I guess. I didn't expect anything, but to my surprise, they accepted. They were just invited as guests, nothing more and nothing less. My upcoming nuptials has piqued my parents' interest, despite it being literally weeks away. I've told them nothing, and only now has my dad inquired about walking me down the aisle. He said he wants to start building bridges with me, and wants to walk his little girl down the aisle. He told me this to my face after I agreed to meet him, and I laughed in his face. I told him he and my mom are just ordinary guests, and nothing more, and that he is barely a father to me, and I'm not his little girl. Well, he is deeply hurt and offended that I said what I said, and that I don't see him as a parent. My mom said that they're sorry for everything, but want to make it right, but this has literally been spurred on by the fact that I'm getting married. Kara has blown up at them, saying they are lousy parents, and that they weren't owed invites. I have some family members saying maybe I should give them a chance instead of being an a-hole, yet they never once helped my sister out either. I'm very stressed and am wondering if maybe I'm the a-hole after all. Not the a-hole. They weren't there for the majority of your life, but now, suddenly, they want to be a part of it again, and not even apologize for all the time they let slip. Not the a-hole. Your dad is deeply hurt and offended? Boo ducking who? Should have thought about treating you like a human being, to not even mention their daughter earlier. I personally would agree with your sister. They have no right to even attend your wedding. After disregarding you for such a long time, it's far too late to start paying attention to your life and acting like they care. Not the a-hole. And I'm going to take your side even further and say that your dad is likely only wanting to walk you down the aisle because he's worried about how it will look to other people if he doesn't.